The next form of quadratic equation we want to deal with is one where a does not equal 1. In this case, I'm going to look at 12x squared plus 7x minus 10 equals 0. In this case, a is 12. But I still want to use a factoring method, and so we use what we call the AC method. It's called the AC method because we start, first of all, by multiplying a times c. Okay. So in this case, that's 12 times negative 10. And 12 times negative 10 gives me negative 120. At this point, what I want to do is find all the factors of negative 120. And I'm looking for two factors of negative 120 that add up to 7. So when I multiply a times c, I find the factors, and I'm looking for two factors that add up to b. So let's try, first of all, well, we know that negative 10 and 12 are factors of 120 because we just multiplied them to make it. Unfortunately, 12 and negative 10 added together makes 2, not 7. So we keep going. And maybe we try next negative 3 and 40. Well, that's negative 37. Now, notice that because these numbers are that's 37, but notice that because these numbers are further apart, we got a larger answer when we added them together. So instead of looking for things that are this far apart, we want to look for things that are closer together. So what else can make 120? Well, may take you a little work with a calculator, but we can find that 8 times negative 15 would equal negative 120. If I add those together, I get negative 7. Well, that's a lot closer, but it's negative 7. Fortunately, I know that negative 8 times 15 also makes negative 120, and this time would add up to positive 7. All right, at this point, I pull out the box. Now, you may or may not remember multiplying using the box. It's an alternative to using FOIL, and we're going to use it backwards. What we're going to do is we're going to take those two numbers that we just found. You're going to make a box with 4 quadrants, and you're going to fill in what we would call the first quadrant with one of these numbers. So I'm going to put negative 8, and I'm going to add an x there with it. Okay, so negative 8x goes up there. And then we take the other number and we put it in what we would call the third quadrant, so 15x. All right. Now, at this point, we need to think about factors of 12. We have 2 and 6 as possibilities, but what I would like is for one factor to go evenly into this number and one to go evenly in here. Now, 2 goes evenly into negative 8, but 6 does not go into 15. So I think again, and I think, well, if I use 4 as a factor of 12 and 3 as a factor of 12, then 4 goes evenly into negative 8, which is what I want, and 3 goes into 15 evenly. And I'm going to put an x with each of those. So 4x and 3x. Now notice, if I multiply 4x times 3x, I get 12x squared, which is what I want for this first term. So we're looking good so far. Now all I have to do is say, well, how many times will 4x go into negative 8x? And I say, well, that goes in there negative 2 times. And then I have to ask myself, how many times will 3x go into 15x? And I say, that goes in there positive 5 times. And just to double check, I'm going to go ahead and say, what is this number times this number? Well, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. which is what I wanted to find for my c value. And so what we have found is that the equation we started with factors to 4x plus 5 times 3x minus 2. And that still equals 0. And just like before, I'm going to take each factor and set it equal to 0 and solve. So 4x plus 5 equals 0. I will subtract 5 from both sides, and that gives me 4x equals negative 5, and I'll divide by 4. And find that x equals negative 5 over 4. Now I need to do the same thing for 3x minus 2. I would add 2 to both sides. I get 3x equals 2. And I would divide by 3, and I would find that x equals 2/3. And I have found my two solutions to 12x squared plus 7x minus 10 equals 0.